AI is the facelift many tech stocks have been waiting for. Since the beginning of the year, the Nasdaq Tech Index has risen 35%. But there's one tech stock in particular that's especially benefiting from the hype cycle, and that's Adobe. Year to date, Adobe is up more than 40%. And in the past 3 months alone, the company has added $48 billion in shareholder value. Now, strong financials are part of it. 2 weeks ago, Adobe reported better than expected earnings that lifted the stock 3% on the announcement. But what investors are really interested in is Adobe's implementation of AI. So in March, the company announced several AI initiatives, most notably an image and ad video generation tool called Firefly. Within a month, Adobe struck a deal with Google to incorporate Firefly into Google's own AI chatbot called Bard. And per Goldman Sachs Equity Research, this, quote, shifted the narrative squarely on AI and highlighted Adobe's potential to be a key beneficiary. So, Scott, last time we discussed Adobe, it had announced a $20 billion acquisition of the design app Figma. That was the largest private tech buyout of all time. Investors took that as a sign that the company was struggling to innovate, though, and the stock fell. But now the narrative has completely reversed with this AI wave. Does any of this surprise you at all?
This is a case study in how to leverage AI as opposed to getting, blindsided by it. And if you look at a lot of the education stocks that have said that AI might hurt us, they've gotten taken down 50, 60%. Adobe could have easily been roadkill here. A generative AI or a design AI could have come out, and if Adobe had said, we're investing here, but it'll probably said it's impacting our business, Adobe could have got cut in half. It could have been half, but instead they really leaned into this early, and you have to give them credit. They were out in front of this.
Yeah.
And Firefly was not only out in front investing in design or generative AI design. Adobe was one of the first to really have incorporated AI with Firefly. And what I think was really innovative or visionary is that they saw that IP and who gets paid and whatever design informs these generative AI models technically would create problems, as in who owns the content that's submitted or that these LLMs learn from, or that these design AI models learn from. And they got out in front of that and only had design that they either have ownership of the intellectual property, they own the rights to it, or they have licensed it. So when you use Firefly, you know that you're clean. You know you're not going to be caught up in some lawsuit. And so they got out ahead of this thing and they said, okay, we're gonna tame this horse, not get run over by it. And the result is the stock has gone up dramatically. Adobe's stock price increase is, who cares about Figma at this point? They've gotten out ahead on AI, and it's a perfect example of a visionary. I mean, this is arguably, next to Microsoft, Adobe's investment in AI is probably the most innovative or most forward-leaning corporate venture capital or corporate investment of 2023.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about who's really benefited from AI, and Adobe would be right up there. What they've done here is nothing short of visionary.
Yeah, I mean, you look at its valuation, its EV/EBITDA ratio is 31x. You compare that to competitors, Oracle's 22, Microsoft's 25, Google's 17. If you look at their EV to ARR ratio, that's annualized recurring revenue, which makes sense because this is a SaaS business. It's 10.7x, and the median across all US SaaS firms is 7.7. So I guess the question is, how substantive is that AI investment? How much of it is narrative? It's clear that AI is driving the stock increase, but I do wonder how substantive really is that AI investment. I guess the Firefly deal with Google is a forward-looking indicator. But I do want to pivot to Figma. And the recent news with Figma is that the European Union is preparing to launch an investigation into that acquisition. And this is apparently it's what's called a phase 2 investigation, which supposedly will take many more months. It's a far more onerous investigation. Meanwhile, the Department of Justice is preparing a lawsuit to block that deal. Do you think that deal will go through? And do you think it will impact Adobe as a company and the stock?
I don't think it's going to go through. and I don't think it matters.
You're right.
I think they're onto something bigger and better. I don't know what the breakup fee is here, but I think it's sort of like Figma schmigma. We figured something cooler out.
Yeah.
And of course, my ultimate market validation is my 12-year-old son is using Firefly, so I assume this thing's everywhere.
Nice.
And I think they're going to double down on this. I think they mentioned in their earnings call, Adobe mentioned AI 30 times in their most recent earnings call. And the revenue increased 10% year on year. EPS increased 17%, while operating margin declined only 1%. Over the past 3 years, the company has grown revenue at a CAGR of 16.4%. I mean, Adobe is arguably the best run company you don't hear much about.
Yeah.
I'm blown away by Adobe, Ed.
Yeah.
I'm totally blown away by Adobe. I partied the VIP room with Adobe the other day. I think they're incredible. So real quickly, let's talk about other companies that have really, their stocks have really benefited, or companies from AI. I would say Adobe's right up there. Obviously, Microsoft, visionary investment in OpenAI. People don't talk about it, and I hate to admit it, but Meta's stock rocket screamer or stock rocket acceleration is kind of on the backs of Reels. People are spending 24% more time over the last year on Instagram because of the success of Reels, and a lot of Reels is powered by AI. I mean, the stuff you get served up and suggested is really powerful. And then I think you'd have to say that, and then of course, NVIDIA. NVIDIA, built these, designed and built these graphic process units for video games, and it ends up that same technology is just the gangster technology for AI, and has breached, I think it's the 7th company in history to breach $1 trillion. By the way, Ed, and I know you take a special interest in this, I spoke at WPP Beach, and the person who spoke after me was this guy, Jensen Huang.
Oh, nice. CEO Jensen Huang. He always wears a leather jacket. He has an NVIDIA tattoo on his arm. He's got this massive Reddit following, the next storyteller CEO. Was he wearing the jacket?
He came up to me and said, "I love your videos."
Oh, wow.
And I said, "Oh, it's a fan." I said, "Do you want to take a picture?" And he kind of stopped and said, "Sure." And someone came up to me and was like, "That's the CEO of NVIDIA." He's a really
CEO in the world.
100%. But he said something really interesting. He said, everyone's going to have a digital twin, which I thought was really interesting.
Yep.
And that everyone should own the rights to their digital twin. It shouldn't be... No one should be able to make a digital twin of you that can be used for money that you don't participate in. I thought he was a very thoughtful, pretty interesting guy. And then the guy who spoke after him was the co-CEO of Netflix, Greg Peters. I think Greg Peters and Ted Sarandos are the strongest co-CEOs in the world. There's not that many co-CEOs. But the two of them and Reed Hastings are all in their 50s. They all have amazing hair. And the likelihood of being a guy in your 50s with amazing hair is like 1 in 100. So that means it's literally a 1 in a million chance you would have 3 leaders with great hair. And I think that they are folliculists. I think they are bigoted against people without hair. And I think that is totally inappropriate. Anyways, that's my hair joke. But I spoke before the CEOs of NVIDIA and the co-CEO of Netflix. So that means I'm important and relevant, Ed.